Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Pylon Cam Podcast, Episode 4, Part 2, Special Guest Edition with Justin Penik. We are picking up on Week 7, the New York Giants versus the Carolina Panthers. Let's get into it. Week 7, which I think is going to be a very fun game to watch. Week 7 versus the Panthers. And why I'm excited for this game is, one, I'm really excited for Sam Darnold as someone who has been in basically the same situation as Daniel Jones his whole career. I would argue a worse situation because Adam Gase was alive and on the Jets.
Yes.
So, it's not even negotiable. But I think this game is going to be a shootout. And, you know what's going to be kind of a little bit of foreshadowing if we lose this game is I think that there is the real possibilities if we don't make the playoffs. Mara might be irrational. We might move off of Jones. And one of my takes for Daniel Jones going into 2022, if we don't have him, we're going to deal him to a team that is a quarterback away from making a playoff run. And a team that's willing to gamble on him, in my opinion, is the Denver Broncos. Why not? They have the receivers that he's going to flourish with. They have the O-line for him. They have the running game. And you know what's going to happen? Daniel Jones is going to take them to at least a wild card because that division is so tough. And all Giants fans are going to be like, well, why didn't he do that for us? And it's because we're so dumb that we can't realize, wow, it's pretty hard to complete a pass when you look at the football in your hands and you have a Chase Young in your face. So,
well, that'll be funny because then Daniel Jones will reunite with Pat Shurmur and then they'll make the playoffs together.
Yeah.
No, but that's not going to happen, Mike. That's not going to happen.
Never gonna happen.
The Giants are going to win all the games this year. So, not going to happen.
17-0. But one thing I want to talk about with this game is I think it's going to be a very fun game to watch on offense. You have like a mirror matchup in Saquon and Christian McCaffrey. You have a mirror matchup in Daniel Jones and Darnold, and then you have Kenny Golladay, and I think that that Panthers wide receiver room. I was high on Terrace Marshall coming out of the draft. He's gone above and beyond, blowing out expectations. So what do you think? What do the Giants need to do? Because the Panthers defense shouldn't be slept on. One kid I actually played Pot Warner with, Miles Hartsfield, might get the starting nod for the Panthers this season. So shout out to him, and the slight chance he's listening. But I think that this Panthers defense, if they had Luke Kuechly, it would be league average, borderline above league average. But I think they have a very strong young nucleus that by week 7 could be clicking. So what do you think? What do you think is going to give the Giants the edge in week 7 against the Panthers?
I think every game, what's going to give the Giants the edge is their defense and the stopping the other team from scoring points. And I think Joe Brady is the hottest name on the market right now as a possible head coaching candidate. And what can he do this year? Because Joe Brady coming out of LSU was this air it out guy. Air it out with Burrow and why not? Air it out with Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Jefferson. So why not do it? But then in the NFL, I was actually surprised to see that he wasn't as dedicated to airing it out. Partially when you have Teddy Bridgewater as your quarterback, that's never been Teddy Bridgewater's MO, which is also surprising to see that he went to Denver, reuniting from the Minnesota days with Pat Shurmur, I guess. But Pat Shurmur was a guy that kind of likes to air it out a little bit too. So I'm excited to see what that offense is going to be with McCaffrey. Are they going to force feed McCaffrey, which they should? McCaffrey has always been about volume, but how are you going to complement with a pretty talented wide receiver room that they have and a new quarterback? And Sam Darnold, this is the best situation that he has ever been in with, I think, the best offensive system that he's also been in too. So it'll be, how can you go up against this Giants defense, which at this point we're going to learn more about. Hey, is this team more of a man defense? Or are they more of the cover 3 zone defense, which they ran last year? How well are they doing mixing man and zone, and how well are they doing at getting to the quarterback and incorporating more of an aggressive scheme? We're going to know more about that. But I think that's the biggest storyline. Sam Darnold, McCaffrey, kind of versus Jones and Barkley, which I feel like all those guys are kind of talked about, especially Jones and Darnold are compared a lot. So that'll be like the main storyline for this game, and I'm excited to see how that plays out. Home game, and there's nothing special about this game. I was gonna you put us losing against the Rams, and that's the Super Bowl 46 reunion. That really hurts me.
I just think the Rams.
No, I got you.
The Rams are going to be solid. I think that they're my favorites to win the conference, honestly. Yeah, I think the Rams are going to be hot this year.
There you go.
And then, let's go to the next game. We're not going to spend too much time on this one, but I had to throw it in. First question. Is there any chance the Giants stand a chance against the Chiefs at Arrowhead with fans? And then the last two questions, I'm just going to throw them at you. Who covers Tyreek Hill? Do you put Adoree Jackson on him, or do you put James Bradbury on him? Because they're two different skill sets, physicality versus speed. And then who covers Travis Kelce, and do the Giants have the personnel to stop Mahomes, Kelce, and Tyreek Hill?
I think it's not going to matter who's on Tyreek Hill, because I think it's going to be a combo of both Jackson and Bradbury based off of where they line up. Usually, we like to think as fans like, oh, our number one corner is just going to follow the number one wide receiver. I feel like it never works out that way unless it's really intentional and it's really planned. And Adoree Jackson's already, in a way, he's gone up against Tyreek Hill in his career, and he's done pretty well considering it's Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. Do the Giants have the personnel to match up with the Chiefs, and do we have a shot? I think defensively we have a shot at containing them. I really think we do, because you saw it with how the Giants attacked Russell Wilson last year, which I didn't think there was a lick in a prayer that the Giants would even be in that game and prevent that offense from scoring at least 24 points. And what they did is they played cover 3 and they prevented the big play. That's what it's kind of simple, and it is much more complicated in reality than what I'm saying. But that's kind of like what Las Vegas did last year against the Chiefs when they beat them. And then that was a primetime game too. That Raiders defense was not good last year. I remember that defensive coordinator was like, his job was on the line.
He got fired after the Jets game.
Oh, well, the game that really mattered for him was that Chiefs game, and that was a beautiful game plan that he executed. And it was basically, don't blitz Mahomes. You're kind of crazy if you're blitzing Mahomes, because he's going to break containment. He's going to improvise. And where these quarterbacks like Mahomes, Rodgers, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, where all these guys are most dangerous is when they're holding the ball for longer than 3 seconds, because they have such good chemistry with their wide receivers. They have such good chemistry with their targets that somebody is eventually going to be open on the sideline. You're going to throw 30 yards down the field, and it's going to be a big play, or you can tuck it down and run. Yep. So keeping him inside the pocket, keeping a guy like Mahomes inside the pocket, don't overblitz him. It's the same thing with Russell Wilson and how they kind of defended him last year, even though I think the Chiefs scheme and Andy Reid is much better than Seattle.
Definitely.
Keeping Mahomes inside the pocket, preventing the big play, and preventing him from scrambling and improvising, because when he does that improvisation stuff, you throw your hands up as a defense and there's no stopping it. It's like, I don't care. It doesn't matter what you scheme up. Doesn't matter what you draw up. Doesn't even matter how good coverage you have sometimes. When he goes and he's running around like a hamster back there, there's no stopping him. So if they're able to do that, and if there's one guy that I trust that he's able to put together a game plan, I trust Patrick Graham. I trust Patrick Graham with my firstborn child that's not even born. That's not even born yet. So that's how I think you kind of stop Kansas City. But in a way, when I say stop Kansas City, prevent them to 24 points. That's.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is going to be I feel like every Giants fan is going to be like, at least like the ones like you and I are going to be like, well, we could win if we do this, but everybody else is like, there's no shot. And I kind of am like, it really depends. Like, this is a game where you cannot win unless you're gambling. Like, the Giants are going to need to be like, okay, we need to take shots down the field, because that is what I actually posted this on Instagram for the fantasy segment of, the Pylon Cam, and Tyreek Hill statistically scored on roughly like 19% of his touches. He scored a touchdown, which is like absolutely insane. But let's go to the next big game I want to talk about. So after the Chiefs, we go to Week 9 with the versus the Raiders. And if you've been following this podcast, you know how I feel about the Raiders. I think they're I don't want to get into it, but I don't think highly of the Raiders. And then we go into a bye. And I think that Joe Judge is a type of head coach where, in the NFL, there are coaches that do well after a bye or do terrible after a bye. And Joe Judge strikes me and has looked like so far that the Giants are going to be a better team after a week of rest. And unironically, we play Tampa Week 10 off the bye. I'm giving the Giants the L here because I think that this Buccaneers team is going to be going, insane. And this is a game that could flip. There's a bunch of these games that could flip, but I do think the Giants land on 11-6, 10-7 in that realm. But there are a few key points I want to make about the Buccaneers and why I'm going to give the Giants a fair shot at it. First thing, Buccaneers have all the same personnel. So the Giants can literally watch their team play the same Buccaneers team and game plan the same way, and look what they did wrong and look at what worked, and worked that way. Second thing, that was Daniel Jones' worst game, arguably, of all 2020.
Ironically enough, that was like Jason Garrett's best called game where he threw it down, where he was calling for deep concepts. So ironically enough, while that was Jones's worst game, that was Garrett's like best called game of the year. So go ahead, continue.
And that is pain. So then, the Giants went out, lost by 3 without Saquon Barkley. They have Saquon Barkley coming back, and they have Kenny Golladay. They have a whole new offense versus the same defense they saw last season. So they're going to see tendencies. They're going to know what to expect. That's where I'm going to give the Giants an advantage going into this game. But I do think that the Buccaneers are just going to be halfway through a season and a half, but going into their second season of clicking and knowing what works and knowing what doesn't work. So I'm going to give it to the Bucs because consistency over change usually wins 9 out of 10 times.
We're going to beat them.
So that's your take. We're going to beat the Bucs.
We're going to beat the Bucs.
We're going 17-0.
Well, yeah, but no, this is one of my serious but ultra homer takes, but I'm so serious about it. Giants would have beat Tampa in the wild card round last year. They would have. I think Daniel Jones and Jason, or at least we'll just say Jason Garrett. I think Jason Garrett understood that Todd Bowles is going to blitz no matter what. And Daniel Jones was one of the highest blitz quarterbacks in the National Football League last year. I think Cam Newton was number 1 and Daniel Jones was number 2, highest blitz quarterbacks last year.
Joe Burrow was
and
up there.
That's because they had a bad offensive line too. But I think that was the game that it finally clicked for Garrett. Like, hey, if they're going to blitz and if this is what they're going to do, then we're just going to throw it down the field and we're going to have he's going to have a high intended air yards per attempt. And that was the case. And even though Jones had those mistakes, he was still like, if you look at the EPA numbers, which is expected points added, it's an advanced metric. He still was like good in that game, which is still bizarre. So we were a 2-point conversion away and Daniel Jones delivering a ball to Deion Lewis a millisecond earlier from tying that game at MetLife during a primetime game. So I think we played Brady very well. Again, that defense played Brady very well. The Giants defense got better. Tampa Bay, yes, they, there was an article which I was reading, I think somebody from Football Outsiders was doing it, where notable losses from Tampa Bay, and it was like LOL next to it because they didn't lose anybody. They won the Super Bowl. They spent how much money for Tom Brady? They spent how much money to re-sign Shaq Barrett? They got Antonio Brown back, and they're somewhere in a Caps situation where they didn't have to lose anybody. So it is really an LOL. But I wholeheartedly believe that we are going to beat them, and that is a homer biased take. But guess what? Fight me.
No, I agree. I am optimistic. I'm just going to give us the L on paper because
give us the L.
These teams, a lot of these teams on paper, you're going to go in and say, "Oh, we're going to lose," but the reality is, especially in the divisional games, those are the most likely to flip. And I do think that the Giants roster is good enough. And I do have this theory that preseason game we watched last week, that's not the offense the Giants are going to be putting on the table week 1. I think that Jason Garrett and Joe Judge, because I don't think Joe Judge would let that happen again. I really don't. Here's my theory, is that if we are ever in this situation where Slayton is our 1, Ingram is on the field, and we have Shepard, and that type of package with no Saquon, that's the style of offense we're going to run. But with Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Saquon Barkley, and all these new shiny weapons and Kyle Rudolph, there's no way we run slants and curls like we're playing Madden on the 20-yard line over and over and over and over and over again for an entire season without someone getting fired. Whether that be Joe Judge for allowing it, that would never happen, or Jason Garrett. I really don't see that happening. Yeah. So let's go to the next game real quick. We're going to power through these last 4 I want to talk through. 5. A lot of them are divisional games, so we've already talked about most of them. But this is Week 11 versus the Eagles at MetLife. Michael Strahan's jersey's being retired. This is the first matchup since the tank job. I think that this is the highest, the game where the Giants are going to score the highest amount of points all season. The only question I'm going to ask you, is there any chance we lose this game?
No.
That's all it needs to be said.
Well, we're home. I'm worried about the away game because I think there's some voodoo witch curse that's in Lincoln Financial Field. But for the home game, no, we're not losing that game.
I agree. And then Week 12, we play Tua and the Dolphins. This is a game we could lose because I really do think Brian Flores is just as good of a coach as Joe Judge, and he's a very good defensive coach. And they're still. I just think that the Giants could lose that game. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I'm giving them the L. And then Week 13 at the Chargers.
They're gonna get Watson. They may get Watson, and I'm worried about that.
Wasn't the deadline today at 4?
Okay.
I think it was. Oh, I could be misinformed. But the game against the Chargers, I think, is an interesting game because I do think Week 13 at LA, I'm giving us the L, but a few things I want to say about this game. If the Giants are clicking at this point on offense, and the Chargers will be clicking on offense, this could be the highest scoring game the Giants play all season. I really do think that. And I think there's a lot of interesting matchups to watch. And just ones I want you to speak briefly on is Joey Bosa versus the Giants offensive line, Keenan Allen versus James Bradbury, and Daniel Jones versus Justin Herbert. And anybody who's not a Giants fan is laughing that Justin Herbert is in the same conversation as Daniel Jones. But nobody expected Josh Allen to take the leap he did, and I'm not expecting Daniel Jones to take that big of a leap, but I'm expecting him to take a step in that direction. What are your thoughts on this game?
Joey Bosa, in terms of that match.
That's going to be a nightmare.
I don't know if you can have any words for that. Andrew Thomas, get it together, buddy.
He's got it. He has to. The season is on his shoulders.
It kind of is. Like, if Andrew Thomas is doing all right, then like the rest of the offensive line, I think is going to follow suit, even if they're not great, even if they're just good or even a little bit below average. But it's the fact that, left tackle is the second most valuable position in the game of football for a reason, where if that guy's not good, then the rest of the line is going to falter. So neither here nor there. James Bradbury, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is, I think he's going to have a bananas year. You want a fantasy segment. It's kind of bizarre that Justin Herbert, 12 out of his 31 touchdown passes last year were from 20 plus yards, and that's about 20%. And you look at like his average intended air yards per attempt, it's right around with Daniel Jones, which you're saying to yourself, well, why did Justin Herbert, every time we see him, he's throwing the ball for a deep passing play and it's a deep touchdown, but why did he have the same intended average air yards as Daniel Jones? And I really do think they alternate between throwing it to those receivers, and then also Austin Eckler is going to be a dude this year.
Austin Eckler. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be really good.
It's going to be a dude.
Stand him. No reason either. It's one of those people that just rubs me the wrong way.
Oh, okay. He got a bald head. Is that what you don't like?
It's just his like aura. I don't really know how to explain it.
He's got like a Dragon Ball Z tattoo. Do you not like? He's like a. He seems like a.
I love. Well, then I got a Star Wars shirt on. Like I'm a nerd, but this guy's your dude. Then he like looks like a superhero for crying out loud. I just don't like him.
He rubs you the wrong way. Yeah. So that combo between Eckler as like that check down option, and they had Hunter Henry too. They lost him, but they mix very well the intermediate game and then also throwing it deep, which I'm extremely jealous of.
I think Eckler's going to be hurt by then. I think Austin Eckler, he only got his shot because Melvin Gordon got hurt on the Chargers. So let's not forget that. And
Eckler missed the majority of last year too.
Yep.
So don't do that. Eckler's like my guy. If I'm picking, like, I hate how I'm in my league. I'm in one of the league that I care most about. I have like the number one pick, and I'm pissed because I'm gonna take McCaffrey, but I'm pissed that I want to take Eckler because I want to be in that like 5-6 range where it makes all the sense in the world to take him. So that's my I gave you a little Herbert stats. There you go. That's my LA take. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen this game. So we'll see.
So going to the next game, this is week 13. Then week 14, we play the Cowboys. This is the second match against the Cowboys. This one's at home. I think that this could be if the Giants are going to win the division, this is going to seal it. Because after this, we play the Eagles, and then the Bears, and then Washington. So
That Bears game is the biggest game of the season, by the way.
I have good questions for you on the Bears game. So
okay, all right.
Talk about this game in under 30 seconds. Do you think the Giants can sweep the Cowboys this year? Is this the year the Giants finally sweep the Cowboys?
I think they could. Why not? The biggest question mark about Dallas is their defense. We know their offense is going to be good. We know their offense is going to be good. Is it going to be as good as it was last year? I mean, that's going to be tough. The yards pace that Dak Prescott was on before he got hurt was absolutely insane and bananas. Yeah, if Dallas's defense was centered, or if the game of football was centered around how many good linebackers you have, then the Dallas would be the 85 Bears. But I can't name you a single safety that they have, and I'm pretty sure one of the safeties that I think they're converting him to linebacker, according to one of my Dallas friends. They're converting him to linebacker, so he's not even a safety. So they have like a million linebackers, and you can't name anybody who's a safety or defensive lineman you can name. But
here's a hot take from one of my personal friends who's a Dallas fan. Shout out to D-Sab. He said that the Cowboys are never gonna win with Dak. They'll never win in the playoffs with Dak. And this is after they paid him. I
think it's just because Dallas is cursed. How about that?
No, I think it's because Jerry Jones cares more about being the coolest team than winning a Super Bowl. Then let's talk about this Eagles game. No, we're not going to talk about the second Eagles game.
I don't want to talk about it. We're cursed. I don't want to talk about Lincoln Financial Field.
So the Bears game. Two things I want to say about it. This was one of Daniel Jones' worst games in 2020, and it was at Soldier Field.
It was also the Saquon game, too.
I was about to say, how do you think mentally being back at Soldier Field since the ACL tear is going to screw with Saquon? And then also to follow up in a different question, what does it look like if Justin Fields is playing? How does that change the dynamic of the game?
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter if Justin Fields or Andy Dalton's starting. They're only going to win. They're only going to have one win at this time that we play them.
Who's the
Giants are. Oh, well, it doesn't matter to me. They could beat the Packers for all I care. They're only going to have one win, and the Giants are going to be smooth sailing for the number one pick in next year's draft with the Bears pick.
Such a fresh pick too. If they go like 4-13,
I'm trying. Whatever spell is casted upon the Giants in Lincoln Financial Field, I'm trying to cast the same thing on the Chicago Bears this year. I'll let you know if I find it. But in terms of Saquon and his psyche, I think Saquon is the guy that kind of cares about that stuff. I listened to his interview that he did with Mike Tyson this offseason, and I made like a compilation video of like the weirdest moments. And athletes are kind of weird dudes. They're not like great talkers, and some of them are. And we like Nick Gates is like, we talked to Nick Gates over the offseason. He's a cool dude, and he's normal dude. But we talked to Darnay Holmes. It's like these guys are these guys are not talkers. And the guys that are talkers, they go on to call games after their careers. Like Strahan's a talker. So
Tony Romo.
Tony Romo's still weird though. Let's face it.
Yeah, he actually. Did you hear his take that came out today?
What is his take?
So if for the people following the podcast know how I feel about Zach Wilson, I made my stand of why he will not succeed in 2021 last episode for about 5 minutes.
Because he's a New York Jet.
No, I'll send you the link. You should just listen.
Send
to
me the link.
5 minutes. No, he's like, I expect Zach Wilson to be up there with like a top 3 quarterback by next year.
Oh, there you go.
And I was like, bro.
Okay.
That is absurd. That's such an absurd take. Like, that's not even a hot take. You're just being crazy. You're drunk.
I think Salah's more likely to fall and crack his ankle running up the MetLife Stadium stairs than maybe that happened.
Every time I see those clips, I'm like, I like Salah too, but like every time I see this, I'm like, who cares? Like, this is so weird.
And I like Zach Wilson, but going back to Saquon, I do think that he likes to think about that stuff where it's like, he probably has that game circled on his calendar.
My shout-out game.
This is like, Mamba mentality. And I think it's, if that's how those athletes wake up in the morning and put their head down at night, like thinking of like those cliche phrases and those inspirational quotes and I'm going to be me and all that. I think it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But also good for him. And I think he does have that game circled on his calendar of like, I'm going to show out this game and I want to show out this game. So that's good for him.
I have him in fantasy. I traded a first in DK Metcalf for Saquon and the first. So Daniel, you got fleeced. It's no big deal. But so last game I want to talk about, and then we're going to do quick Q&A because this is going on for a lot longer than I anticipated. Week 17 versus Washington at home. This will more than likely be the game that decides the division, because I have Washington coming in at second, only a game behind. This is one of the knocks I have on Daniel Jones. And it's a good knock, but he's got to course correct a little bit. This, to me, is the highest stakes game Daniel Jones is going to play in his career, especially if we're tied with Washington. Daniel Jones has a tendency similar to Carson Wentz where he needs to play hero ball down in the fourth quarter, which is like, you want to be confident in the fourth quarter. You want your franchise guy to be like not rattled in the fourth. But perfect example I can think of is the Rams game last year. Similar to Aaron Rodgers in the conference championship, a lot of people were saying that he ran, he could have scored. If Daniel Jones runs against the Rams, he doesn't score, but I believe it was only second down. If he runs, he brings us inside the 5 at least and slides and doesn't fumble. Unless he tries to spin move and we're all acting like he's Archie Manning on the Saints. But how do you think Daniel Jones is going to handle pressure this season, particularly in this game?
In terms of him just handling pressure in general, because we really haven't been able to see him in those like Eli 2011 clutch situations a ton. I mean, his first game he did it quite well, you know. His first game against Tampa, man, if how that was
the game where Giants
high of
fans
highs.
Were like, the clouds are opening and Jesus is coming down. Down on earth for the New York Giants.
But just in terms of handling pressure in general, I think this is a dude that doesn't check social media. I think a lot of players say that they don't check social media. I think Daniel Jones is the one guy, like he has whoever his agent is or whoever his marketing person, whoever, that they'll tweet out the ad or whatever that they're working on, and he'll get his banging his buck, whatever. So I think this dude, I think he has ice in his veins. I'm not going to say that like, oh, this dude in the fourth quarter has ice in his veins, because he's got to go out there and prove it. But I think shielding out whatever outside noise is there, he doesn't pay attention to it. I think he's a good dude. I think he's a hard worker. I think that's why people in the building like him so much. And I think that's why he was drafted over a guy like Dwayne Haskins, a guy like Drew Lock, where I guess, maybe you can look at the film and you can say that those guys maybe have more talent, however you want to classify that.
Higher ceilings,
all those stupid draft phrases that we hear every April. And I'm excited to go away from it once we hit the month of May.
Yeah.
But the Giants care about how hard of a worker you are. And that's what made Eli Manning. Eli Manning was never talented in any one regard, but he worked harder than everybody else. And that's why he was a pro for 14, 15 years. Mm-hmm. And I think Daniel Jones has that same work mentality of he's going to prepare as much as he possibly can. So in terms of responding to pressure in that regard, in terms of just being the quarterback of the New York Football Giants, if there's going to be a reason why Daniel Jones is going to fail, it's not because he's going to fail and unravel because of the pressure. It may just because it just didn't work and he's not that talented of a quarterback. That's going to be the reason why
I really don't think it's his talent. I think he has all the intangibles that, I think Colin Cowherd puts it best. He's Alex Smith with a higher ceiling. And Alex Smith played in an AFC Championship game, but part of the reason why I asked you that question, and just to kind of tie it back to Zach Wilson just for a second, being that they're both New York quarterbacks, one of the arguments I made for why Zach Wilson is not going to succeed is he's coming from somewhere where he was a big fish in a small pond. And Utah, as a state, I think has one of the lowest populations, is one of the least populated state in the country, one of. And he's coming to the New York market, which is one of the most erratic, and Jets fans are like top 2 most delusional fan bases in the entire NFL. And he's going to be their savior. And I think he actually kind of hurt himself because he set the bar so high in the preseason. Whereas if he fails to meet that, the media is going to be on him instantly. And he's someone who I think, conversely to Daniel Jones, and to Daniel Jones' benefit, is he got to play a season with Eli Manning there, where Eli told him, like, hey, like, Daniel, what do you think you could do better this offseason? Well, we're a team, and I think that I could just do better. Like, I don't think that's going to be Zach Wilson's response. I think it's going to get to him a lot more than it would Daniel Jones. But that's going to wrap up our segment on the schedule at a glance for the Giants in 2021 and my predictions, and Justin backing my prediction, who has higher standards at 17-0. And we're just going to do the Q&A. This is going to be a fun segment if you're a Giants fan. It's a lot of questions that we want answers to, and we are very curious about going into the season. So let's jump right into it with the first question being also, I have listed, if you're watching on YouTube, if not, follow Justin and Talkin Giants on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and YouTube. All social media is Talkin Giants, and then Justin's personal is jpenik88 at Instagram, and on Twitter it's just Justin Penik, how it's spelled on the screen, and if you're listening, JUSTINPENIK. Gang.
Boom.
All right, first question. Why do you think the Giants are going to win the division? As quick as you could say it, and as blandly and plainly as you could say it.
Upgraded weapons on offense that can overexceed the expectations of a bad scheme, and a more versatile, more talented defense that will be a top 5 unit. That's why they can win the division.
I think their floor is top 8, for sure. My one of the concerns is that Jason Garrett's like, oh, we got these shiny weapons for my scheme. It's like, no, man, like, it'll be the worst thing ever. Next question. So, we kind of touched on this in the beginning. Who's the biggest, if you could rank these in terms of biggest threat to the Giants' success for 2021, 1 being the worst, 3 being the least worst? Daniel Jones, Jason Garrett, Giants offensive line.
I go Jones least, offensive line second, Jason Garrett first.
I'd agree. I think the Giants line is the scariest, but Jason Garrett has the highest potential to just be the worst.
Yeah. Because I mean we've seen, you mentioned the Chargers. You know, we've seen offensive play callers scheme around not having talent at like skill position spots, and then also having bad offensive lines too. Like it's not impossible. Now, granted, you need talented players in the NFL to succeed. I'm not saying that, but to be as bad as the Giants were, you know, they had the same players in 2019, and the offensive line in 2020 was better than 2019. So, you know, and they scored more points in 2019.
Next question. Which returning player or addition will make the biggest impact? And, like, if I could give my 2 cents, I think, in no particular order, my top 3 would be Kadarius Toney, Azeez Ojulari, and Adoree Jackson. And I think AT takes a step, but I'm going to kick it to you.
Adoree Jackson's my number 1 player. I think he's going to, in terms of value-wise, I think he's going to bring more value to the Giants' defense than he is than Kenny Golladay is the Giants' offense. I don't think Kenny Golladay makes this Giants' offense a top 10 unit. I think Adoree Jackson makes this Giants' defense one of the best defensive units in the league, and it is because Patrick Graham can play more man coverage on the back end. You can trust Adoree Jackson to play man coverage, and you don't have to, you know, cover his side of the football field and shade defenders to his side of the football field like they did with Isaac Adom last year, where, you know, you feel good about leaving James Bradbury on an island, but then you have to shade stuff to Isaac Adom. And the Giants don't have to do that this year. They can play man coverage all around. That's kind of like what they did against the Patriots in the preseason game, where I wanted to see against the starters, not necessarily just the backups, blah, 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 because the scheme is always going to be more vanilla. But when they actually finally got the starters out there, what kind of scheme were they going to be playing? And even without Adoree Jackson, with the Rodarius Williams on the field, they were playing man coverage all over the place. And that's why Cam Newton actually put a pretty darn good throw to whoever was, I think it was Jacoby Myers he was targeting on that interception. But Blake Martinez just makes a heck of a play. But Blake Martinez makes a heck of a play, and they were playing man coverage all around. So that's the impact that Adoree Jackson can bring, because it allows Patrick Graham to be more aggressive and they can blitz.
Yeah, huge Chase Blackburn vibes on that pick from the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, I'd agree with you. I think Adoree Jackson is going to have the biggest impact if I had to rank them, because for someone like Patrick Graham, he, like, all of last season, he had to scheme to cover the cornerback 2 hole. He doesn't have to do that anymore. So now he has more freedom and liberty to put people in places to cover smaller holes that the defense has. So I agree.
Absolutely.
Next question. Which player, you kind of just touched on this, but which player are you most excited to watch on offense and defense?
Well, I'll say defense.
Adoree Jackson?
No, not Adoree Jackson. No, I'll go with somebody different. I'm I love Leonard Williams, man. I love Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. I'll go with both of them, because if the Giants are going to be blitzing more, I think defenses are going to respond by going with more 3-step drops. Instead, last year, It's, hey, Giants aren't blitzing and we're going to try and go deep and we're going to try and beat this cover 3 scheme. So quarterbacks, they could take those 5-step drops. And then eventually, that's where the coverage sacks would come from, where nobody's open. And then guys like Leonard Williams would get home. And really, Leonard Williams had like 25% of the team sacks and nobody else really made an impact in that regard. I think Kyler Fackrell was second on the team with sacks last year, which is nuts. But Dexter Lawrence can really come and fully step in, where if the quarterback is closer to the pocket, then that's less of a track and less of a journey that he has to get his hands on the quarterback. So I'm excited to see those two guys rock and roll on the offensive side of the ball. How can you not be? I'm all right. I disagree with the pick. Blah blah blah. Running back position, analytics. Yeah, I'm excited to see Saquon.
That's such a stupid argument. Nobody knew Nick Chubb was going to be that good. Like nobody. He went in the second round. Saquon, you have to take him. It was the right pick. I don't care. That's stupid. That's people being haters.
We'll argue about that another day, because I'm saying I do disagree with the pick. I still do, and I don't know, and I don't, as of right now, I'm not paying Saquon Barkley, but I am excited to see him. You have to root for the guys in blue. Just because I disagree with the pick, I'm never not gonna not root for the guy's success. So I'm excited to see him. He's an explosive player, and that's exactly what the Giants offense needs.
If I could change that pick, it would be Quentin Nelson, but nobody else.
Yeah, I would agree with you, or I would trade the pick. The Giants were rebuilding, and if they wanted to go
rebuilding. They were doing if they wanted stupid, like we're gonna win now and rebuild. Like
Nate Solder, signing Nate Solder. If they knew that Eli was going to be the guy, then like you have a top 5 pick, you're usually going to take a quarterback unless like you needed that left tackle, which that Andrew Thomas pick made sense. You had your you had your you had your quarterback. But the fact that they knew that they were going to go with Eli for one more year, so why not just trade the pick? All right, anyway, neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. I don't like talking about it.
Players I'm most excited for anybody that cares. Offense, gotta be Daniel Jones. I'm excited to see him play in a revamped. I want them to just, if things start to fail, go back, watch the tape of what Pat Shurmur did, and just copy and paste. Like, please, just do something. And then on defense, I'm very excited to see Azeez Ojulari. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler in like 2 years. A quick question for you. What's good with Ellerson Smith, our 4th-round pick?
Apparently he's out there. I don't think he's fully participating in practice yet, but hasn't done anything so far this summer. And then after the 53-man cut day, he's actually doing some stuff on the side. I thought he was going to be like Aaron Robinson, and they were going to put him on some sort of list where he doesn't play the first 6 weeks, because also it kind of makes sense for that to happen, because Aaron Robinson at least had the opportunity to kind of contribute right away. Ellerson Smith is not. I'm sorry, like he's not going to make any substantive impact year one.
Definitely a developmental piece.
Besides just as a situational pass rusher, but the Giants already have O'Shane Zimen as a situational pass rusher. Azeez and Lorenzo Carter are the guys that are the two most versatile, and I don't know what they even just got Quinn. I'm excited for Quincy Roche too, who I would put above Ellerson Smith on a depth chart. So I don't know what the deal with him is. I think that's still kind of TBD. I don't think he's definitely not going to play week 1, but hopefully he'll be out there soon.
I was checking Twitter before this, and actually crazy for fans that don't know. Talkin Giants, every year they do before the draft, they'll do a prospect breakdown type segment on Twitter and like small clips. And Bobby, who definitely is someone who knows his stuff, had Quincy Roche as a 3rd-round prospect.
In his pre-free agency mock draft, he had Quincy Roche as a 3rd-round pick.
That's crazy too, because he ended up going in the 6th, and we just got him off waivers. Anyway, last 2 questions, and then we're gonna wrap up. What's your biggest fear as a Giants fan for the 2021 season? Besides just the answer of Jason Garrett.
Yeah. I'll get a little bit more creative. My biggest fear, it's kind of a subset of Jason Garrett, so I'll say this and then I'll say my second fear. My biggest fear is that I start to begin to like Patrick Graham a lot more than Joe Judge, because he doesn't grab Jason Garrett by the balls and say change your offense. Mm-hmm. So that's number 1. Like I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
And number 2 is the Giants defense regresses because cornerback secondary depth is a little bit thin and somebody gets hurt. Where if they go back to that cover 3 scheme, which they ran last year, there's already 17 games on film of Patrick Graham running that defense. Somebody, a smart mind, and that's why I'm excited how they changed it, because then they can do more this year, and that's why I'm more excited about the Giants defense. If they didn't sign Adoree Jackson, then I'm like a little worried about regression for this Giants defense, because we can't be relying on this offense to score 30 points. We just can't. So we need this defense to continue to, clamp down and not allow points. And what we want out of this defense this year is, yes, to create more turnovers and also get off the field quicker. Because despite them being a really good defense last year, they still were a group that allowed a lot of time of possession per drive, where they would allow drives, to sustain, and then once they got to midfield, they would clamp down. They would clamp down once offenses got to midfield. Yep. So I'm worried about the regression this year in that regard of, hey, maybe teams not getting a few more field goals or score a few more touchdowns when the Giants would clamp down last year. So that is a worry if if a James Bradbury, Adoree Jackson, Darnay Holmes, or a safety, if any of those guys go down, then I'm worried about how they kind of respond. But that is also, it's not a big worry.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. That's definitely a reasonable fear. I think we all have that fear to go backwards.
Yeah.
I think the expectation is we can only go forward on offense, but our defense is what gives Giants fans the ability to get out of bed on Sunday and watch them.
If the Giants offense is worse than they were last year, somebody can take my left middle toe. I'm serious. You could take it right from my body.
If the Giants offense is somehow worse, I'll give it a shot to go coach them. There's no way you pay Jason.
Will you take my left middle toe?
Yes, because this is what I'm going to tell Daniel Jones in my new offense.
We're gonna. You want to shake on it right now?
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll put it right on. I don't know. I'll do something with it. But
put it in your bio. If the Giants offense is worse in 2021 than 2020, I get Justin Penik's toe.
Deal. So. Actually, there's 2 questions. I lied, so I'm sorry for that. But
that's okay.
Let's go to the next question.
Go to the next question.
So this is a pretty early look ahead, and I want to make this point before I ask you this question. So early look ahead, but what positional needs do you think the Giants will face in 2022? And before you answer, I want to just put this on the record. I have had the Giants there is a parallel storyline. There are parallel character arcs of the Miami Dolphins and the New York Giants. They both have a Belichick disciple. They both have good defenses. They now are both questions at quarterback. And now, even more interestingly, Miami's potentially making a huge acquisition at quarterback with Deshaun Watson. And the Giants next year could potentially be looking at, I don't think it's going to happen, Aaron Rodgers did put a preferred destination as New York Giants. So what do you think the Giants... I just wanted to say that. But what do you think the Giants are going to look to address in 2022? For me, I think it's impossible not to address the O-line. That's number one for me. But go ahead.
Well, first of all, they're going to have to do some sort of miracle cap space opening up if Aaron Rodgers is a possibility.
Yep.
Anyway, I would say guard, offensive guard. Root for Matt Parrott to be the answer, and I think the Giants have no other choice for our sanity for Andrew Thomas to be the answer. But definitely, offensive guard is going to be something. Will Hernandez, this is the last year on his deal, and Shane Lemieux may not be it. Not a lot of people believe that Shane Lemieux was it this year. So that's definitely going to be possibility that we need to look at, and edge rusher. If there's going to be the spot where the Giants are either going to spend a high draft pick, which I would prefer them to spend a high draft pick, or spend money, it's going to be the edge rusher spot. And I think edge rushers in the NFL are super overpaid. We saw what would happen with Olivier Vernon. Guy got a lot of pressures, but in today's NFL, you need guys that can get home and get sacks. And that is so tough to predict.
Yeah.
I've done so much research and so much looking year to year over guys that get sacks. There's a reason why Aaron Donald is recognized as the guy and the arguably the best player in the NFL. It is because even from the interior, he gets home every single year. There is no variance with Aaron Donald. But that's going to be probably the spot where if you have 2 first-round picks this year, there's a lot of good edge rushers out there, and there's a lot of good pass rushers out there that are coming up in this draft class. So I would definitely be down for the Giants to spend a first-round pick on one of those guys, and then you have them on the cheap for relatively cheap for 5 years, where you don't have to overpay for an edge rusher.
Yeah, and that's my that was my thing. I kind of want, when the Giants traded back when I was watching the draft, I was like, oh, are we going to get like Kwity Paye? Because I liked Kwity Paye out of Michigan a lot. I thought he was.
That's what we thought too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be the real deal. I'm excited to watch. I like the Colts. Like I'm excited to watch them on the Colts. Yeah, I think that guard is something. And this is the thing I'm going to say. It's not a positional need, but the Giants need to address this. There's no reason, and there's no way the Giants consistently busted on Andrew Thomas, first-round pick, Will Hernandez, second-round pick, even though he's playing better, and Matt Parrott, third-round pick. Like, there's no way. Like, that is a coaching issue that, like, needs to be addressed because they are beyond talented than people on offensive lines that are ranked higher than us. That is coaching that needs to be fixed. Anyway. So, last question. Favorite move by the Giants following training camp cuts?
I mean, Quincy Roche is definitely the guy. I mean, a guy that we projected to be a third, fourth round pick, and he did fall to the sixth. And there could be a reason why he's cut from Pittsburgh. There was a couple of Pittsburgh fans that were in some Giants fans mentioned saying you got a good one. It could very well be possible that Pittsburgh is just stacked at the edge rusher outside linebacker room, and that's why he got cut. Also, it's a possibility that maybe there was a reason why they didn't like him. But, you look at least the film that he put on at Miami, and Bobby Skinner is going to have a film breakdown out on the YouTube channel too. And you look at the film, and this dude fits Patrick Graham perfectly, where he's not just a guy that can rush the passer. He's a guy that can also drop back into coverage. I mean, there are, if let's just say Lorenzo Carter, a guy like him, takes 60 reps in a game, which is the majority of the defense snaps, 10 to 12 snaps are him dropping back in coverage. That's a decent amount. That's not just, one or two plays every once in a while. So he values that versatility as a guy that can rush the passer, play the run, and drop back into coverage too. Where I would say, in a way, dropping back into coverage and playing the run is more important in Patrick Graham's eyes than just having a pure pass rusher, which I would do things differently, but I'm a fan. I'm not Patrick Graham. And like I said, I would trust Patrick Graham with my first newborn child that's not born yet.
It's not born yet. I was a fan of the Colin Johnson signing on top of that one. I really like Colin Johnson. I think that nobody on that Jacksonville coaching staff is going to bring out his potential. He's 6'6", massive. He's a huge dude. And I really did like the guy we got from the Ravens. I forget his name off the top of my head, but one of my close buddies is a Ravens fan, and we always talk about how the Ravens just always have good lines offensively.
He's going to start.
Oh, yeah. And I think he's going to be, like, fundamentally elevate this offense by himself. And I'm excited about Billy Price. I kind of am getting annoyed, though, that there's definitely this trend that Dave Gettleman likes to gamble on guys he's drafted in the past, like, i.e. Kelvin Benjamin. Like, why did we bring him back? And then the other one is, like, the other trend is we keep drafting, like, talented people that have exceptionally bad injury histories, i.e. Adoree Jackson.
Well, here's where that's wrong.
Same way.
Because before this year, before this year, Dave Gettleman's track record, especially in free agency, was availability is the best ability. That's why Nate Solder was signed to the largest contract in offensive tackle, offensive lineman history, because he just played 16 games. Didn't matter his ability. That's why Golden Tate was signed for 3 years. Played 16 games. Ignored the ability. So I actually don't mind for this Giants team.
Change it up. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Dave Gettleman putting all the eggs in the basket. Joe Judge also, I feel like, doing the same thing, because you have to. There's a window. Saquon Barkley's window's running out. Daniel Jones's window's running out in terms of their rookie contracts where they're cheap, right? So I'd rather spend on talented players, maybe with some injury problems, because also you have to think about it this way. Kenny Galladay is hitting the open market for a reason. Allen Robinson's not hitting the open market. Because Allen Robinson plays 16 games.
That's why I wanted the Giants to go out and get Allen Robinson over Galladay.
Yeah, but guys like him don't hit the open market. You're going to franchise tag Allen Robinson, and he's going to play 16 games for you, and you're going to work out a long-term extension. Kenny Galladay, with somewhat of a questionable injury history, I don't blame the Lions for not wanting to put the tag on him, especially when they're trying to rebuild. So I would rather them be risky in that regard with going out and spending on talented players and investing in talented players with high upside rather than overpaying for Golden Tate, rather than overpaying for Nate Solder, because at least they tried, because those guys are just, no matter what, Golden Tate and Nate Solder are going to be liabilities around the football field, and they're getting a hefty paycheck while they're at it too. So
yeah, that's a very fair point. But Justin, this has been awesome. I can't thank you enough for coming on. Everybody, check out Talkin Giants. If you're watching on YouTube, their social media, Spotify, YouTube stuff has been listed and spelled out all over this presentation, I guess, if you want to call it that. But no, this was awesome. This is a great way to, kick off this portion of the podcast and bringing people on who just know what they're talking about and can provide that valuable quality take on their favorite team for my listeners. Justin, this was amazing. I can't thank you enough. Talkin Giants versus the world.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget it. But that's going to do it for us. That's going to do it for me. Thank you for watching the 4th episode of the Pylon Cam Podcast. And we will catch you guys next time. Justin, anything you want to say before we close out?
Mike, thank you for having me on. I'm rooting for you in your journey of starting a show and starting a podcast. So I'm rooting for you. If you need me for anything, I'm here. And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yep, same to you, man. This was awesome. So, guys, that's going to do it for us. Catch you next time. Peace.